And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 128th episode, recorded on Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, joined tonight by my co-host, Kathy Amos, and we're joined by our special guest, Jennie Crabtree. Tonight, we'll be previewing your Indiana Hoosiers. But tonight's banner moment, as usual, we'll start the show with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And Kathy, Jennie, I'm going to go to today was Media Day at the Big Ten in Chicago, and Terry Moore and Coach Terry Moore and Chloe Moore McNeil and Sydney Parrish represented the IU women's basketball program. And I thought an interesting comment that Coach Moore made at the press at the media day today was their goal is to one day get to the point where they can sell out a Simon Scott Assembly Hall basically on season tickets and students alone. So they're, obviously they've got more they want to keep doing, and we'll talk a little bit more about the individuals as we go along here. So our Hoosier Proud banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, who includes the Assembly Call, Crimson Cast, X's and Joe's, and now the Dribble Drive. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. You are bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you're also supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelly School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23, that's HOME23, to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. And once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. In news around the program this week, IU was picked number 5 in the preseason Big Ten poll. They had nobody named to the preseason All Big Ten team, which I thought was interesting. I'm going to get Kathy's thoughts a little bit as well. USC was picked to win. Juju Watkins headlined the Big Ten preseason honors with really it was a no-brainer really when you think about it. But it was an interesting to see that nobody from IU was picked on the All Big Ten team. November 2nd, the team will hold a basketball clinic in Bloomington, the Candy Stripe Crew. You can check out more of that information at the school website, iuhoosiers.com. Big Ten, as I mentioned, Big Ten Media Day was today. I didn't see a whole lot of it, just saw some clips, as I mentioned earlier, the one about Terry Moore and wanting to eventually be able to sell out a Simon Scott Assembly Hall on season tickets. And then finally, the NCAA released their future regional sites and Final Fours today. The only one really that kind of concerns us locally is the 2028 NCAA Final Four for the women will be held in Indianapolis. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kathy for the Amos Angle.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, for kicking us off here. So, yeah, a couple thoughts on some of those headlines. One of the things we didn't really stick in here in the news headline was on Saturday during the Big Ten tailgate before the football game. They actually had McKenzie and Coach Morin on and interviewed them. And that was actually a really fun interview. I was able to have just flipping that on right as that was kind of going. So that was fun. That was definitely one of my banner moments for the week. Yeah, I do definitely find it interesting, Jeff, that and Jennie, that we were picked number 5 to finish overall in terms of team finishing. But nobody on that first team, which it was, I think that if I remember correctly, there were only something of the 18 teams, something like 5 teams that were represented on that All Big Ten team. So there were quite a few people that had multiple people kind of picked on that team. So I think what that told me is, even though we're still picked 5th, overall from both the AP and the coaches, that they're expecting us to be maybe a diversified team. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into it. So that was my takeaway. And yeah, the Final Four coming to Indianapolis is great. Check local listings. It's not local for me, but for me, Des Moines, at least on the men's side, was selected to be another regional site in 2028. So I think we're going to have that here in 26 and in 28 for at least on the men's side. So those are coming to the thoughts. Again, we're getting close here. I think we're just under a month away from, at least for Indiana, the tip-off game for us. coming up on November 4th. So we're really starting to ramp up here now. So I'm really excited to dive into our team and talk about what we might expect from them.
Yeah. And so it will be an exciting time over the next about 5 weeks, really, a little over about 4.5 weeks. So we want to welcome Jennie Crabtree to the podcast. Jennie, kind of give us your thoughts about some of the news.
Yeah, I was shocked that we didn't at least have somebody, but I knew it was probably coming, that we weren't going to have anybody because we lost Mackenzie for one. That was a big hole in our offense. But I knew Juju Watkins was probably going to be the shoe-in for the Big Ten Player of the Year. They are the number 1 recruiting class, so if that tells you something there. But I'm happy to see what the schedule is going to look like and how we're going to do this year, being 5th. So hopefully we get the girls in there, and the freshmen from last year can really step it up this year. They started I think towards the end of the year, I think they started looking really, really good. But I think this year, we've got some new players coming in. We've got a couple transfers. So I'm really excited to see what it holds for us this year.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's take a look at Indiana this year. This is our preview show for IU, and really kind of an interesting season here. We have some vets coming back, and we also lost obviously one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player in the history of the program. The all-time leading scorer in the program's history, especially. She's definitely on Mount Rushmore as Kinsey. So the Hoosiers picked preseason number 5 in the Big Ten. Head coach Terry Morin coming into her 11th season. 229 wins, 99 losses. That's just under 70% winning percentage. 21 seasons overall as a head coach, where she has 425 wins and 229 losses, a 65% clip. The all-time winningest coach already at IU, 6 NCAA appearances, 3 Sweet 16s, and 1 Elite 8, and a WNIT championship. 9 consecutive 20-win seasons and 3 straight years with a WNBA draftee in Allie Patberg, Grace Berger, and Mackenzie Holmes. So just real quickly, Kathy, any comments or anything you want to chime in about Coach Terry Morin?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think we know exactly what we're getting with Coach Morin, right? She's very consistent in her messaging. Her philosophy is definitely a defensive first minded team. The thing that I think I'd love about Coach Morin that's really coming out so far this year that we're hearing is how she's willing to change up her style of play. She's had some pretty strong bigs over her coaching career at Indiana, especially the last 5 seasons, obviously, but maybe not so much this coming season. And again, once we get into the details with our returning players and new players, we'll talk about that more. But she's talked already that she's going to look at doing more of a 5-out type of a system, that Princeton type system. And I absolutely just love that about Coach Morin. She's built that family atmosphere for the program. She's shown she can win. She doesn't necessarily go after the headliners in the recruiting classes. She goes after the people that will fit her program and the way that she wants to play. And to me, that's working out for sure. And I think we've been able to build a lot of trust with her over her 10 years, getting ready to go into her 11th.
Jennie?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself than what Kathy just said. Coach Morin, she does have that defensive tenacity about her. That's what she relies on a lot, and we did really well on that. I'm really happy that she, like Kathy said, she doesn't go out and get the headliners. She goes out and gets those who's going to make her team better the way she would like to make it. I'm really looking forward to seeing how she does with this team, seeing it is some new pieces that are coming in, and seeing how she's going to get the post playing going, because we do have a lot of depth in our post players and our guards. So, I'm ready for a lot of 3-point shooting this year.
Yeah, and I think we'll continue to see that as well. Kathy, why don't you run through the history here real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So last year, Indiana finished 26-6 overall. They were 15-3 in the conference, which was good for third overall in the Big Ten. I think the notable thing for me was their record at home. Again, went 17-0 and undefeated there at home. Some of the notable wins that they had, speaking at home, they beat Iowa there in that February game where they really just handled them from beginning to end. The other notable wins were Tennessee and Princeton down in Fort Myers over Thanksgiving. On the L side of the columns, I think it's hard not to to forget that Stanford on the road loss that we had early on in the season. And then, of course, Iowa on the road had given it to us before. Ohio State, where we just really struggled with the press there, especially right after I think halftime. And then Michigan, of course, in the Big Ten tournament where we decided not to play McKenzie for most of the game. And then South Carolina, where we really just dug a big hole and came back in one more minute. And I think we would have beat them. So overall, that was kind of our history last year.
Jennie, your thoughts about last season?
I was really sad on some of the games that we looked like we didn't come prepared. I think my biggest one was Michigan in the tournament because I felt like we could have beat them. But, yeah, we didn't play McKenzie. The Ohio State game, I knew they love to do that press. So we just could not beat that for some odd reason. We just couldn't get it to go. South Carolina, like Kathy said, I think if we would have had a few more minutes, I think we really could have come back because we were doing really well. We started getting our shots to fall. And we were doing the defense really well there too. So, our season ended not the way we wanted it to, but I think overall, 17 at home. I got to see my first game there for the postseason. So I was really excited to see the atmosphere there at the Assembly Hall. So it was really exciting for me.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was the way they played on the road. And the Stanford game was one that you could kind of say, okay, Stanford was going to be really good. You really were looking at really kind of a top 10, top 15 matchup going into that game. And Stanford was loaded. They had a lot of talent, and we just didn't play well. But it became kind of symptomatic. We didn't play well at Iowa, didn't play well at Ohio State. A couple other places, Maine, going up into Maine, up to Maine last year, where we didn't play all that well until toward the end of the game. So I think that was one of the biggest problems and Coach Morin talked about a couple different times throughout the season about how they had to be able to play better on the road. Illinois was another place where they did not play on well on the road. From that standpoint. So I would be interested to see how they kind of attack the road trips this year a little bit more, especially considering, like, for example, they're going to have to make those trips out to Washington and Oregon and see what's going on from there. So last year, the Hoosiers were averaged 79.5 points a game, which was 14th in the country. They gave up 64.4, which was only 173rd. And again, for a team that really prided itself on its defensive tenacity, they did have some games where they didn't play that well. The Murray State game was one that I was actually at where Coach Morin was just not happy after that game with the defensive intensity and things. So you could see that they got better as the season went through. But I think also, Kathy, this is something you hit earlier. They're making a little bit of an adjustment in their philosophy. They're not necessarily looking to outscore, but they're willing to give up a little bit more in order to play maybe a little faster pace. But their scoring margin was 15 points a game, just over. That was 16th in the country. The tempo, for as much as we felt like they pushed the tempo, they really were, they were 122nd. They averaged 71.5 possessions, but their O rating was 6th in the country, and their defensive rating was 18th. So their efficiency was outstanding. Shot 50.4% from the field, which was first in the country. They were first in 3-point field goal percentage at 39.6, 73.5% free throws. They held their opponents to 40.3 and 31.4, respectively. 13 turnovers a game, which was 29th in the country. They only forced 13.8 though. So that was 281st. So a plus 0.8, and then out rebounded their opponents by 3.3. But they were but they weren't an outstanding rebounding team, and they'll be interested to see how they make that adjustment without McKenzie as well. And even with McKenzie last year, they struggled at times on the glass. And then they were 18.5 assists per game, which was 14. So, Kathy, I'll throw it to you real quick. Any thoughts on the stats, and then we'll get Jennie's thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think you hit a lot of the same, obviously, things we probably talked about quite a bit last year, where, they did take us, if you want to call it a step back in defense. And I think they did that with, knowing they were going to bring in a little bit higher offensive power, especially with Sarah, expecting her to take that leap up. So I think overall, that's fine for me, right? Like in the tempo, I was surprised at that as well. I thought we might be a little bit more than 71.5 because, like you said, I felt like they played faster. But I guess when you're first in the country in field goal percentage and 3-point field goal percentage, you don't need as many possessions. And they're still outscored their opponents by an average of 15 points per game. So I think overall, Jeff, the glaring to me hole is definitely the rebounding. Only a 3.5 rebounds per game margin, not quite 221st. And what I tend to remember from last year, and you guys can chime in and tell me if you disagree or not, but I remember them seeming to not crash as much on the offensive glass, I think, so that they could get back on defense. And I think that really hurt. So while they were making their shots at a really great clip, they weren't really getting those second chance shots. And so that's kind of what I remember as a big hole from last year. So I'll be curious if Coach Morin is willing to change that philosophy of her system next year or this coming year, or if she'll kind of stick to that where she doesn't really send a whole lot to crash the boards on the offensive side. But Jennie, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with that. It just felt like we weren't getting many, I could be wrong, 50-50 balls. I wish they could have done better on that. And then getting in transition, to see what they could do. But I totally agree with everything you just said. So I'm not sure really what all to add to that, but
okay. Let's move on to the returners. All right. And we have 3 returning starters and a part-time returning starter, as Sydney Parrish missed about 10 games, I believe, last year.
That's right.
With a foot injury, with her broken foot. So Lexi Bargesser filled in for that spot most of those games as a starter. Let's look at the 3 main stars returning. You have Chloe Moore McNeil coming back for her 5th year, 5'11" guard, 32 minutes a game. And I think we'll see, kind of Chloe's numbers, with that 10.3 points per game, 3.6 rebounds and 5 assists. Yarden Garzon, 6'3" junior, 29.5 minutes, 11.7 points per game, 4.4 rebounds per game, 3.1 assists per game. And Sydney Parrish, 5th-year senior, actually almost a grad transfer, a grad student here, 6'2" guard, forward out of Hamilton Southeastern, north side of Indianapolis, Hamilton County, obviously. 27.4 minutes, 10.8 points per game, 6 rebounds, started 24 games, as we said, missed out on some games because of the foot injury that she suffered middle of the season. So, Jennie, I'm going to throw it to you. Just give me your thoughts about what you think of those 3 starters coming back.
I'm excited. I am very excited because, as probably everybody knows, Sydney is like my all-time favorite. Even though we've had some really great Hoosier players, right? Just something about the way she goes for the balls. Like, she goes for all the 50-50s. She's gritty. She's tough. I was so glad when she said she was coming back. Chloe and Yarden, I'm ready for them to come back too. I mean, Chloe, she started really being more vocal when she started taking over that point guard position. And I think she really showed it last year. What she's incapable of doing. She can dish out some assists. Yarden, with her 3-point games, I think she's only going to take a step further. I think she'll do a lot better at that this year.
Kathy, your thought about those 3?
Yeah, absolutely. So, back to our earlier conversation of people not being anyone from this team being on the all Big Ten preseason team. If you look at the numbers for those 3, they're really good and consistent, but they're not at the level of where the other 10 people that are on that preseason Big Ten are, right? Like, nobody jumps out and says, oh, they are averaging 15 points per game or 20 or whoever. You're not a Lucy Olson or Juju Watkins or whoever. However, they're consistent and they're even. And then, Sydney, I think Jennie hit that one right on the head with her, because what we really thought about with Sydney, or at least for myself, when I think Sydney, I think about her rebounding. In fact, she was second on the team last year to Mackenzie Holmes at 6 rebounds per game. Mackenzie averaged 6.6, so she wasn't that far behind. So I think she's definitely, in terms of returning players, our leading rebounder coming back from our team from last year, and that's what I expect. Other things I'm hearing, the same thing you mentioned, Yarden, I think it will take a big step up. We know she was dealing with a lot mentally off of the court last year with Israel and what was going on there. And I really think that she'll come back and hopefully have a great focused off season. And I've been hearing that she is really starting to take some strides and looking great in practice from a couple of accounts I've read or heard on other podcasts as well. So I expect a lot of things from them. If I were voting, I probably would have voted for Chloe Moore McNeil of the 3 to be on that first team preseason. But again, if people aren't familiar with their games, they're not really sure who they are in terms of in detail of things they do off of the stats, and they look at Chloe's stats and they only see 10 points per game, I can understand why they didn't probably vote her for preseason Big Ten.
No, I get that. I totally do. And I think we'll see Chloe make an even bigger step up this year. I think she'll increase the scoring. Maybe the assists might actually drop a little bit, just because, not because she's necessarily playing worse. It may not be what her game is totally this year. She's been, she was a great post feeder for Mackenzie over the last couple of years, and that may not be what they're doing this year.
Right.
The one I have with Yarden, and I'm not trying to be a negative here, but Yarden has to be able to stay out of foul trouble. There was too many games last year where Yarden was in foul, and Sydney does too, to a certain degree. Sydney has to find a way to stay out. I thought she got better as the year went on, but especially Yarden, it seemed like there were just too many games where she had 2 fouls or that third foul quick in the third quarter. So she's got to be able to stay on the floor a little bit longer. And I think part of that 29.5 minutes is because of foul trouble that she had throughout the year. I mean, realistically, I think she would have been more around the 31, 32 minutes had she been able to stay on the floor without the foul trouble. Sydney's numbers, again, are a little bit skewed because because the first couple games she came back, they had a little bit of a minutes limitation on her and things like that. So her minutes per game would be a little higher. But again, she's one that missed some time there. I'm going to jump down here, Kathy, real quick, and I'll let you talk about the transfers here in a second. But Lexi Bargesser, 5'9" junior guard, coming back, part-time starter last year when Sydney was hurt, 21.6 minutes. She usually was the first guard off the bench anyway, so it made a lot of sense when she was plugged in that role. 4.3 points per game, 2.7 rebounds, 2.8 assists. And then Lily Meister, 6'3" junior, 10.5 minutes, 3.7 points per game and 2.7 rebounds. Real quick, I'll take this and then we'll throw it around to Jennie and then back to Kathy. We're hearing a lot of things that Lexi has really reworked her shot. I would imagine that Allie Patberg has worked a ton with her this summer. I'll be very interested to see what her shot form looks like. She already did it at the free throw line last year. She totally changed her shot form at the free throw line, but her jump shot has to get better when she's on the floor. I thought Lily, and again, I'm not trying to be a negative here. I like Lily. I really think she has a bright future. But I felt like she took maybe a little step back last year from her freshman year, where she oftentimes got in foul trouble, maybe committed some turnovers. So, but I think Lily's going to get the shot. To me, I think Lily gets that first shot to fill Mackenzie's starting spot. And with that, so Jennie, what do you think about those two?
Yeah, I'm real interested to see how Alexis does this year with her new form. I did read about how Allie had worked with her on her free throw shot, and I did not know that. So that was interesting. And now she's working with her on her shot. So hopefully that will get it going. Because the first time I didn't know much about Lexis and her shot and her shooting form. So I didn't know if she'd been doing that since high school or if she had just recently started. I never was the basketball player, so I never knew how that would work. Lily, I know we lost Mac, so there is no other Mac, right? So I want to see how Lily does when she comes in, because we need a post player down low that can be like a bully, can be, go for the rim shots, get the 50-50s, get the rebounds. So I'm really interested to see how she does on that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all of that. Lexi, obviously the wild card is how much can she improve her points per game and really step up her offensive production so that the defense isn't sagging off of her like they were last year. Lily is an interesting one. I'm hearing also some really great improvements and big strides already. You know, I think Allie might have said that in an interview, and then people have been talking about her media day. So I'm expecting her, and we need her to take some really big steps, but she's got help coming in as well. And so I think we'll just jump into those transfers, Jeff. That's where you want to go next. Yep. So we have 2 transfers coming in. Jeff and I earlier in the offseason did a full podcast talking about both our transfers and our freshmen coming in. So I won't go into in depth and on them. I do encourage you to go back and listen to that pod. If you haven't already, you can find it out on our Back Home Network YouTube channel or in your podcast feed. But there are 2 coming in. So Caroline Striplin, she's the 6'3" senior forward. She played at 3 seasons at Tennessee. She's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. And then on the guard side, we have Shade Chesky. A lot of us should remember her. She played at Penn State for 2 years. And so she's got 2 years of eligibility. She's a 5'7" junior guard. So both of them have proven production in their previous schools and really, you know, high end power 4 schools, I guess, at this point, right? So I think what I'm expecting is Shea Chesky to me is the more obvious one in terms of how she's going to slide in. She is definitely a 3-point specialist. I expect her fully to take that starting guard spot from where Sarah Scalia left us. I think her big question mark is going to be her defense, right? Again, Coach Morin, defensive first. That's always the question. It was the question when Sarah Scalia came in. And it kind of, you know, took Sarah a couple years to figure that defensive scheme out. So I think that'll be the question for Shea is how much she'll be able to help on the defensive end. Caroline's interesting to me because you can either take her or Lily into that starting spot. Again, I'm not too hung up on how much who starts and who doesn't. I'm more interested in the production that we get from them. You know, she did start for Tennessee for a few games. She only averaged about 14 minutes per game and 4.7 points per game. So between Lily and Caroline, I really think, again, like Jennie absolutely rightfully said, we're not going to just take one person and replace that production we got from McKinsey. It's going to be a team effort. But we definitely, I think, not just need Lily, but I think we're going to need Caroline to step up both of their games from what we have seen in years past. Jeff, you're muted, by the way.
Sorry, my puppy was barking. Jennie, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything that Kathy said. You know, I was kind of wondering, you know, who would be coming in to start this year because, you know, when we lost Sarah, she, you know, she was our 3-point specialist, and now you're bringing in Chase, and I think her field goal or her 3-point shooting was about the same as what Sarah had for her career. So you're really bringing in this. It's not like it's like Sarah never left, right, with 3-point shooting. But I think Carolyn, you know, if you don't have Lily starting, you could definitely start her. I think she looks like she. I watched some of her highlights today. So don't tell my boss. I'm sure if she found out. So I think with whoever you play, like we said, I think it's got to be a team effort. You know, we've got to have everybody playing their role. We've got to have the defense. We've got to have the rebounds, 50-50 balls. And I think no matter who you have in there, Coach Morin's going to have everybody ready to go.
Yeah, and for me, Caroline Striplin is a key because she provides that other post player. And if we are doing more 5-out stuff, I think she fits a little bit more into that scheme. She's more of a face to basket, where I think Lily's kind of back to the basket player. But to me, the key is Shea Chesky. If Shea can come in and be more near what
wait, so Chesky is the key? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, she is the key. No pun intended. But for Shea to be the key, because she can be, you know, if she's anywhere near what Sarah was putting up percentage wise, she doesn't have to score the same amount Sarah did. She just has to be able to put up the, you know, kind of the same percentage numbers from deep, because that'll keep the defenses honest. They won't be able to load up on anybody else. My thing with Shea is going to be more, again, I agree with Kathy about defense, but she's proven she can play in the Big Ten. She played quite a bit with Penn State, started most of the year last year until she got benched in the WNIT for some reason that we never really quite figured out. But from that standpoint, so I'm really excited about Shea, but also that's where we talked about Terry Morin doesn't have to go get the 5-star recruit. She gets the kids she wants, and then she's shown that she can fill in with the portal. And that's, I think, key. And she's very good at identifying what she needs in the portal. And so I think that's, again, in this day and age of NIL and the transfer portal, that's a huge component to your coaching. So, Kathy, why don't you take us through the freshmen coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. One other point on Shea, though, I think one thing that I'll be curious of, and I think Sarah developed this last year in her game, is being able to drive. But the other thing I think Shea brings in addition to driving is, a couple of the clips I remember watching on her earlier when we prepped for that other podcast is that she's got a pull-up mid-range jumper too. So I think that she might have a little bit more, again, on the offensive side. Immediately that we will see from her. Okay. So yeah, again, 2 incoming freshmen or 3 now, excuse me. So we have Faith Wiseman. She is kind of the headline, I think, for our incoming class. She is a 6'4" wing that came from Indiana, number 61 recruit overall. She's got some really good length on her. She can see the floor. She can find her open team members. For a tall person, she's also can shoot the 3 and the mid-range, really great length again, and can run the floor as well. I think for her, it's just going to be, again, the biggest question mark for freshmen coming in is that defensive scheme. And is she really going to have really the muscle to be able to battle down low or whatever position we end up putting her with? So to me, that's the question. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some minutes from her, especially hopefully in those earlier non-conference games. But I'm not sure if she'll be able to get herself into the rotation with everything we already have coming back, our 2 transfers coming in. We haven't even mentioned our 2 sophomores that we have with Lene and Jules either. And I expect some, a sophomore jump from both of them. So I'll be curious to see if she's able to carve herself a spot in the rotation. Real quick, then the other 2 freshmen, Sydney Finn, another 6'3" forward. She is from Buffalo, New York. And then we just had recently here in the offseason, Valentina Katalikova. She is a 6-foot guard from the Czech Republic, where she averaged 12 points per game in the U20 Euro Championships. She's also played in 3 FIBA championships for the Czech Republic. And in her club ball, she averaged 11.6 points per game and 2.7 rebounds per game. So I think both of those probably figure to be more future type looking players for us. I don't know that we'll see Sydney and Valentina really get into a regular rotation scheme, but those are kind of my quick thoughts on the freshmen, not having them seen 1 minute of them in an IU uniform, but those are my quick thoughts on them.
Yeah, I think Wiseman will be the person you see more of. I don't know if we'll see a lot of them, especially come around Big Ten season. If we do, great. If Faith can somehow work into a rotation, especially with her pedigree on the recruiting rankings, would be nice. But I think this is, again, kind of what we've seen with Terry Morin with freshmen, just kind of, let them watch, let them learn, and then get them ready for the sophomore year. I agree with you about about Jules and Lene. I still am a big fan of both, but I'm really big fan of Lene because I think Lene still has star written all over. And I think she's one that can take a jump this year and really provide some really, really good minutes. What I like about Jules is that Jill's just going to battle. She's going to stick her nose in there. She's going to go after some of the 50-50 balls and things like that. So, Jennie, what are your thoughts about the freshmen and also those 2 sophomores in Jules and Lene?
Oh, I love Jules and Lene. I think they started really progressing in a positive way last year. Starting to get their threes to shot, their 3-point shots to go. I'm really looking forward though to seeing a Wiseman. I really want to see, how she does. 6'4", she's not your traditional post player that I was noticing in some of her highlight reels. She almost reminds me of like a 5-tool baseball player, kind of like she's got a lot of skills that she can do, with her passing. I mean, she was throwing absolute dimes during that reel. And I mean, I'd love to see how she does if she gets to play a lot. I would like to see if coach will put her in there to let her see how she does, at least in the non-conference games, like y'all said. The other two, I'm not real familiar with. I was trying to see some of their highlights and see how they played. Kadlikova, she looked like she was a very good defensive player. Kind of like the point that coach would like to see, I believe, that would help out in that department. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see how the freshmen do.
Right. And then we lost, obviously, two big players. We lost Mackenzie Holmes, the all-time leading scorer, maybe the best player in the history of the program, 28.2 minutes a game, 19.8 points per game, 6.8 rebounds. And then Sarah Scalia, who is averaging 33 minutes a game, 16.3 points per game, 3.8 rebounds, 2.4 points per game. And also Ariel Wisney, who played in 12 games last year, graduated and used up her eligibility. For those who don't know, Sarah is playing over in Italy. Mackenzie, we mentioned earlier, was drafted, but because of her knee injury, took the year off. She's back at IU as a graduate manager. So, Kathy, just real quick, any thoughts about Sarah, especially Sarah and Mac?
Yeah, I think we lost our two highest points production. So you're not going to simply take two transfers and some freshmen and hope for big leaps from everyone else and then replace that with just one person. It really is going to have to be a team collective team effort. And again, I love hearing Coach Morin say she is looking at playing more of a 5-out kind of offense. I'm also hearing Lily's got a little bit of an outside game going on now too, which will lend herself. Yeah, so she should, which is fantastic. So overall, I think that we are going to need a lot of people kind of stepping up. So we're not going to get into it today because later on in our off season, we're going to start talking predictions. I'm sure we'll talk about who is going to lead us in points and who might lead us in this and where we might finish. So we're definitely not going to jump into that today. But I think, looking at our team in total, I can absolutely see why they were picked to finish fifth in the Big Ten. I think that it's going to come down a lot to scheduling. I think after you get out of those top 3 or 4 teams in the Big Ten, it's going to get really bunched up. But I like our team, at least on paper today. And I like hearing some of the things where Coach Morin is quoted as saying they're absolutely ready to go. They are really gelling the teamwork, and they seem like they're already getting that cohesiveness. And that is a testament again to Coach Morin as well. And I think we can take a lot from the fact that we were one of, what did we decide, Jeff? 5 teams in the country that didn't have a transfer.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think a transfer out. I think that it was something like that. I know it was in single digits, maybe 5 or 6 teams. We were only one team that did that. And so what you're really looking at is taking your core of your starting 5. You have another great bench player with Lexi who got just some fantastic experience in her 9 starts and being our one of our main bench players between her and Lily coming in. You have 2 experienced transfers coming in. So I think we look, again, on paper, I think we look pretty deep and even, whereas last year it was really Mackenzie and Sarah. And if, one of those 2 weren't really on their game, then it was really a struggle, I think, in some of those games that we ended up losing last year. So overall, I like our team. I think it's really quite balanced this year. And I think it's going to be a different style of play, at least offensively, than what we've seen in the past.
Jennie, your thoughts about the seniors and a little bit about what you look for this year?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how Mackenzie, coming back and being one of the grad assistant coaches. I think I'm really excited to see how she can help out with the post players, kind of give them some guidance on what would be needed as far as, production wise. Allie does it for the guards, so that really helps. And I'm ready to see what Mackenzie can do. Sarah, I was really glad to see she did get to go overseas and play. She's a very good ball player who we will all miss as well. I'm looking forward to this season. And see how this new team does. Who's going to be starting, who's not. How deep coach does off her bench. If she goes, 7 players, 8 players. We have a very, like Kathy said, we got a very balanced crew. So you've got a lot of guards and a lot of forwards. And I think anyone you put in there, I think really could make a production to the team.
As we head toward the wrapping up the show here, schedule-wise, non-conference, Indiana has one marquee game that is at home. That's Stanford. And then they will play down in the Bahamas at the Battle for Atlantis around Thanksgiving time. Their Big Ten double play is Purdue. And then they have home games in the league against USC, UCLA, Ohio State, and Maryland. And really, Iowa is really kind of one of the only teams they play that's thought to be in the upper echelon on the road. So if they can take care of home court the way they have the last couple of years, things might break right for them. Kathy, your thoughts about the schedule?
Yeah. Again, I haven't dove into it too terribly deep. I'm kind of saving my predictions for a prediction show, but we've known about their home and aways for a long time. We know that we're always going to get double plays with Purdue. And I'll be honest, I love our home draws that we have. The four that you mentioned, USC, UCLA, Ohio State, and Maryland, those are the four picked to finish in front of us in the Big Ten. I don't know that we could have asked for a better home schedule, and the tough one, maybe I'm assuming will still be tough simply because of the environment is Iowa. I think there will be some other surprises along the way. I think that, again, that middle part of the Big Ten is just going to be super bunched up. But if I'm going to if I had to pick any games that I get at home, those are the four that I would want anyway, at least knowing what I know today on October 2nd.
Jennie, your thoughts about the schedule?
Yeah, I'm like Kathy. I really like our home games. I think the way we took care of business last year, Assembly Hall is always rocking for girls games. Hopefully I think they sold out. I'm not sure, or if they were close to it, but I'm really interested to see how they do on the road when they go to Oregon and Washington. See how that, if it turns out to be jet lag like we did in Stanford. I want to see how they, like you said earlier, I want to see how they do on the road. That's where I really am wanting to see. And I think if they can take care of business on the road, I think they'll have a really good season.
So as we get ready to wrap it up here, Kathy, any final thoughts from you about the Hoosiers?
Yeah, I would say with every show that we keep doing here, Jeff, it just makes me even more excited for that season to tip off here coming up. I love watching our football team and everything right now, but man, I love basketball, and I'm excited to be able to see them both at the same time, I guess now, as we get closer and closer to the season. It is hard to see how we're going to replace Mackenzie and Sarah. But I have, again, great faith and I have good trust in Coach Moore, and she has proven to us over her 10 seasons that she has earned that. And for me, that's absolutely where I'm at with it. And, we got a good cohesive group coming back. Only have lost, again, the two players, nobody to the transfer portal. That culture is there. That mindset is there. Everybody knows what is expected of them. So I think, again, what it hinges on for us is, can those players that haven't shown the proven production, the Lily Meisters, the Lene Beaumont, Jules, Lexi Bargesser, those four in particular come to the top of my head. Caroline Striplin even, they need to be able to show that they can increase their offensive productivity to help replace what we have lost with Sarah and Mackenzie. So while not losing anything on the defensive end. So it's a tall ask, but if there's any group that can do it, this is one I think I'd have a lot of faith in doing it.
Jennie, your final thoughts about the Hoosiers?
I think Kathy said it best. I am ready just to see the year that we're going to have. And I think if anybody can get the team ready to go, it is Coach Morin. She has only gotten better as every year has come and gone. So I never want to lose that lady. I really want to keep her. I wish they'd sign her indefinitely, for the rest of her life. So I am ready to see. I'm ready for this year. Like Kathy said, I'm ready for the football team has done, a great job this year, what they've done with Coach Signetti. But yes, I am a really a basketball fan at heart. So yeah, I'm ready to see what the future holds.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the team coming back this year, or the team that will be on the floor this year. I think some players that are coming back are going to make some step ups. Chloe Yarden, Lily especially. I think Lene has star written all over her. I'll be interested to see how well Shay mixes in, because I agree. I think she is the one that slots into that spot for Sarah. Can she learn the defensive system quick enough that Coach Morin always wants them to have, kind of as their backbone? This is one of those where they might be a little, again, we're going to do predictions later. They might be a couple games under where they were last year. They might only win 23, 24 games, but at the end of the season, they might actually be better in terms of, with maybe more depth. And we get, one of the things we've talked about time and time again, Kathy, is depth and getting more people into the rotation. Maybe this year we'll see that a little bit more with that. So I think it's one of those years where you might win 23, 24 games. You might go, 12-6 in the Big Ten, 11-7, but come tournament time, you're actually going to be maybe a little more dangerous team from that standpoint. So let's, Kathy, why don't we play some Bob Thompson and we'll get ready to get out of here.
Absolutely.
Coming up next, our next show is October the 9th, a week from today, when we'll dive into the Maryland Terrapins and Coach Brenda Friese's team. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@Back Home Network. Again, youtube.com/@Back Home Network. You can be part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Design for designing our logos. And also a big thank you to Bob Thompson for our music that you heard throughout the broadcast. And thank all of you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you in 1 week. Again, want to thank Kathy for being alongside me all these episodes. Also to Jennie for joining us tonight. Until then, keep your elbows in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jennie.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me, you guys. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. All right, cool. I'm going to go ahead and end this. But yeah, hang on for a second, Jennie, and we can chat for a minute.
Sure. Be
All
great.
right,
everybody.
good night, everybody. See ya. Bye, Mom.